Steer clear of that man, darling." A woman tugged her child along her gaze, drawn to Rachel, who sat in quiet companionship with an elderly man, his grey beard framing a face etched with the stories of time, clad in a jacket that bore the marks of many seasons. Rachel remained silent, her lips sealed, as if the weight of unspoken words hung heavily in the air. With a graceful gesture, she extended half of her sandwich to him as the golden rays of the evening sun enveloped the trio beneath the majestic oak tree. Precisely 1 hour later, the serene tranquility was abruptly pierced by the thunderous roar of helicopter blades. The commanding officer emerged with an air of authority, executed a crisp salute, and declared, "We have been in pursuit of you for a decade, sir. Welcome to QH, where the journey begins. Let us unveil the truth of what transpired." In the serene heart of Glendale, a quaint Midwestern town, Rachel Richardson, a dedicated 35-year-old, passionately nurtured the minds of her third-grade students at Meadowbrook Elementary. Simultaneously, she embraced the challenges and joys of single motherhood, raising her spirited 7-year-old daughter Sophie with unwavering love and determination. Sunday afternoons held a sacred charm, a cherished moment to step away from the relentless glow of screens and immerse ourselves in the warmth of each other's company. On this enchanting Sunday, they nestled at Riverside Park, a blanket unfurled beneath the majestic oak tree that held their fondest memories, while a picnic basket brimming with lovingly crafted sandwiches and succulent fresh fruit lay invitingly between them. As Rachel meticulously arranged their meal, her gaze fell upon an elderly man, Solita Richard, and contemplative, perched on a bench a mere 30 yards away. His silver hair and beard cascaded in disarray, while his garments, though worn by the elements, remained impeccably clean. His eyes were the most striking feature, alert, yet hauntingly distant, as if they were gazing into realms far beyond the confines of the park. Rachel observed with keen interest as the other park visitors instinctively steered clear of the man, creating a wide circle around him. Parents guided their children away, their hushed warnings weaving a tapestry Richard of caution in the air. Joggers transformed their paths. The man appeared to inhabit a Solita Richard realm, a desolate island of isolation surrounded by the bustling throngs of the crowded park. "Mother, pray tell what is the reason for that Solita Richard man's presence in such isolation?" Sophie inquired, her eyes tracing the direction of her mother's intense stare. Rachel's keen gaze fell upon the man, who possessed nothing more than a humble plastic water bottle, its contents drawn from the park's fountain. Devoid of sustenance, bereft of belongings, and lacking even a single page to turn, he stood alone, a solitary Richard figure, his eyes locked onto the distant horizon, ensnared by the tempest of his own thoughts. With a measured tone, Rachel responded, "I believe he may be feeling hunger. Shall we partake in the delightful act of sharing our midday feast?" Sophie nodded with fervor, her eyes gleaming as she carefully chose the finest sandwich to present. As Rachel drew nearer to the man, a palpable tension enveloped her, the weight of disapproving glances from nearby families pressing down like a storm cloud on a sunlit day. A woman seated at a nearby picnic table cast a disapproving glance, her head shaking with unmistakable disdain. Amidst the hushed whispers, a voice emerged, barely audible, speaking of the need to uplift and inspire them. "Pray, sir, may I have a moment of your time?" Rachel inquired with a soft yet compelling grace. "My daughter and I find ourselves surrounded by an abundance of food, far more than we could ever consume. Would you be so kind as to grace us with your presence?" The man's gaze lingered on her face, a slow, deliberate movement, as if he were weighing her intentions, pondering the depths of her motives. After a brief pause, he gave a single, decisive nod. "We are just over yonder," Rachel declared, her hand sweeping dramatically toward their blanket. Simple, yet delightful, just sandwiches accompanied by refreshing lemonade. The man trailed behind her, his footsteps echoing in the stillness as they returned to their cherished picnic spot. He glided with an unexpected elegance, a stark contrast to the rugged lines etched upon his face by the trials of existence. "I'm Rachel," she declared, her voice laced with warmth. "And this is Sophie," she continued, as he gracefully settled onto the edge of their blanket. The man inclined his head in recognition, yet refrained from revealing his name. Rachel chose not to press the matter further. With a gracious nod, he accepted the sandwich that Sophie, beaming with pride, offered him. Treating it with a reverence that hinted at the profound unfamiliarity of such kindness, he consumed his meal with precision, each bite measured and deliberate, his gaze intermittently sweeping the edges of the park, a vigilant assessment that Rachel recognized all too well, a familiar ritual she had observed in her cousin, a soldier returned from the battlegrounds of Afghanistan. From a nearby table, a woman exclaimed with fervor to her husband, "Can you fathom that she would allow her child to be in the presence of someone like that? What sort of mother is this?" Rachel feigned ignorance, her focus unwavering as she poured the lemonade into an additional cup, the liquid cascading with a deliberate grace. Mother Sophie breathed softly, her fingers pulling at the fabric of her sleeve. "What is it that casts such a shadow upon his visage?" Rachel cast a fleeting gaze at their quiet guest, observing the subtle quiver in his hands and the tautness that gripped his shoulders. "Perhaps," she replied with a gentle whisper, "for it has been an eternity since anyone chose to sit by his side. If you hold the conviction that a truly good soul merits remembrance, then linger with us a while longer." As the last morsel was consumed, the man delved into the depths of his tattered jacket, his movements deliberate and reverent. With great care, he extracted a meticulously folded piece of fabric, revealing a patch that caught Rachel's eye. Its faded embroidered Richard proclaimed 4th Marine Recon Task Force Echo, encircling an insignia that danced just beyond her understanding. "My father served in the Marines," Rachel declared, her voice resonating with the weight of shared history. He seldom spoke of it, as if the Richard mention held a weight too heavy to bear. The man nodded, a glimmer of comprehension illuminating his expression. His fingers danced over the embroidered Richard with an intimate grace, as though rekindling a long-lost connection to his Richard essence. "I was there," he declared, his voice gravelly, as if the weight of forgotten years hung heavily upon it. "Then I ceased to be." His enigmatic declaration lingered in the air, a palpable tension weaving through the space that separated them. Rachel held her tongue, acutely aware that these were the most words he had shared with another soul in what felt like an eternity. Sophie, embodying the pure and unfiltered curiosity of youth, directed her gaze toward the scar that marred his wrist, a silent testament to untold stories. "Were you injured in any way, Sophie?" With a fervent spirit, Rachel commenced her admonition, yet the man, with a subtle shake of his head, silenced her words. Once upon a time, he whispered to the child, "There are moments when the wounds of the world mend more swiftly than those hidden within." A man ambled past with his family, halting in his tracks, his gaze fixed in wonder upon their extraordinary Richard assembly. He lifted his phone high, feigning a casual selfie against the picturesque park backdrop, yet Rachel's keen intuition unveiled the truth: he was capturing them in secret. Moments later, she caught sight of him, his laughter spilling forth like a melody. The elderly man, with keen eyes and a perceptive mind, took note as well. His posture became rigid, and his eyes took on that faraway gaze once more. With a deliberate motion, he started to fold the patch, a prelude to his impending retreat. "Would you care for another glass of lemonade before your departure?" With a gentle tone, Rachel inquired, seeking to alleviate the tension that hung in the air. As he graciously accepted the cup, a jogger swept past, proudly adorned in a Marine Corps t-shirt. He cast a fleeting look at their picnic, only to be struck by a sudden realization as his gaze fell upon the patch clutched in the man's hands. He decelerated, casting glances over his shoulder repeatedly before propelling himself forward with a fervent sense of purpose. Unbeknownst to Rachel, the jogger, Staff Sergeant Tyler Williams, had discerned the unmistakable emblem of the task force, Echo, a symbol steeped in significance. On that fateful evening, he shared a post in a private veterans group hinting at a possible sighting of Colonel Reed at Riverside Park. While I cannot claim absolute certainty, the TF Echo patch was undeniably clear. Is there anyone in the Glendale area who can confirm this? Your response is eagerly awaited. The photograph captured by the scornful observer had swiftly started to make its rounds on local social media, accompanied by the biting caption, "When single moms adopt stray veterans, you rock bad choices." Yet upon entering the confines of a closed Military Richard forum, it ignited a reaction of an entirely different magnitude. "My heavens, it is," he declared, a retired general. "Behold the illustrious Samuel Reed." In mere moments, the image was subjected to intense scrutiny by intelligence officers from a multitude of agencies. Urgent phone calls surged through the ranks, reaching the highest echelons of Military Richard Command. Colonel Samuel Reed had led an elite reconnaissance unit through the shadows of a classified operation in the year 2008. Official records state that he and his entire team met their tragic end in the heat of battle. In truth, Reed emerged from a mission that had crumbled into chaos, a failure so profound that it clung to him like a shadow, festering with survivor's guilt, and a moral wound so deep that he turned his back on all he once knew, unable to confront the grieving families of those who perished under his command. For 10 long years he wandered like a spectre, drifting from one town to another, shunning the veterans' benefits that could unveil his identity, taking on fleeting jobs for mere cash when the need arose. His PTSD had cast him into a shadowy solitude as fervent discussions erupted in secretive realms regarding the contentious choice he had made in the heat of battle, a decision that some hailed as valorous while others condemned as a calamitous misstep. At long last, after countless years of relentless searching, he had been discovered not by the watchful eyes of intelligence agencies or the stern gaze of Military Richard police, but by a humble third-grade teacher casually sharing a sandwich in the serene embrace of a park. As Rachel meticulously gathered their picnic, lost in the joy of the moment, Reed, with a quiet intensity, slipped a small wooden carving of a bird from his pocket and handed it to Sophie. It was a token, perhaps the sole treasure he could offer in return for the warmth of their shared humanity, a gesture laden with unspoken meaning. Type yes if you have ever witnessed a hero fade into obscurity, their valor overlooked merely for the sin of silence that lingered too long. Precisely 58 minutes after the photo began, its journey through Military Richard channels, the unmistakable thrum of helicopter rotors shattered the serene tranquility of the park. Families gazed upward bewildered as a Black Hawk helicopter descended, hovering ominously above the open field beside the picnic area. As it descended, park visitors fled in all directions, the fierce downdraft twisting tree branches and sending napkins and paper plates swirling chaotically across the grass. With a swift motion, Rachel drew Sophie nearer, her heart racing as 4 uniformed soldiers leaped from the helicopter, their descent barely waiting for the machine to complete its landing. From the shadows, a 5th figure materialized, clad in a resplendent dress uniform, his high rank unmistakable as the insignia gleamed brilliantly in the sunlight, commanding attention and respect. "What is unfolding, dear mother?" Sophie implored, her fingers tightly entwined with her mother's, a silent plea in her eyes. "I don't know, sweetheart," Rachel replied with candor, her gaze fixed on the soldiers as they meticulously surveyed the remaining park-goers, their eyes honing in on Reed. He stood tall, embodying a Military Richard precision that belied his weathered exterior. The officer advanced with purpose, halting at an exact distance before executing a formal salute with unwavering precision. "Colonel Samuel Reed, sir," he proclaimed, his voice resonating through the hushed expanse of the park. "Lieutenant Colonel Nathan Hayes of the Marine Special Operations Command seeks your esteemed permission to escort you home, sir." The park-goers, frozen in their tracks, gazed in utter disbelief at the ominous arrival of the helicopter. Rachel and Sophie remained motionless beside their blanket, their eyes riveted to the unfolding spectacle before them. Reed's transformation unfolded with a quiet intensity, leaving an indelible mark on all who witnessed it. With shoulders squared and chin lifted, his eyes, once lost in the abyss of distance, now pierced through the haze with a newfound sharp clarity. "I assumed no one was still looking," Reed declared, his voice resonating with a newfound strength far more potent than when he had addressed Rachel. "A decade," Sir Hayes responded, his voice steady, yet laden with the weight of time. "We pressed on, unwavering and relentless." From the helicopter descended another figure, an older man whose pronounced limp betrayed his age, clad in civilian attire, yet exuding an unmistakable military Richard presence with Eve. Richard deliberate step he took. As he drew near to Reed, his facade shattered. "Samuel," he uttered, his voice trembling with emotion, "we believed you were gone from us forever." General Richard Reed conceded, his voice trembling with uncertainty. "I do not stand before you as your superior," Richard asserted with a commanding presence. "I stand before you as the father of Captain Caleb Richard, the final soul you rescued before the fateful extraction faltered." A look of realization washed over Rachel's face, illuminating her features with the glow of newfound clarity. The enigmatic figure with whom they had shared a meal was no ordinary Richard veteran. He was a figure of great importance, a soul who had vanished from a realm that relentlessly sought his return. Two soldiers advanced toward Rachel and Sophie, their presence commanding the air around them. "Madam," one spoke with utmost respect, "your benevolence today achieved what military Richard intelligence failed to accomplish in a decade." "I did nothing out of the ordinary, Richard," Rachel declared, "merely shared a meal." "You beheld him," the soldier insisted, "truly beheld him, while the rest of the world turned a blind eye. That holds a significance beyond your understanding." Lieutenant Colonel Hayes spoke in hushed tones, revealing that Reed had vanished following a covert operation where harrowing choices in the field had preserved some lives yet tragically claimed others. Even with the weight of official absolution lifted from his shoulders, Reed found himself ensnared in a web of self-reproach, unable to grant himself the mercy of forgiveness. He vanished into the shadows, his existence a secret held by a privileged few who had devoted years to piecing together elusive glimpses scattered across countless states. The mission details are shrouded in secrecy. Hayes revealed, yet what I can share is this: 8 families have endured a decade of uncertainty, grappling with the haunting Mr. Richard of their loved ones' final moments. Only Colonel Reed holds the key to that long-awaited closure. As Reed readied himself to ascend into the skies aboard the helicopter, he cast a lingering glance back at Rachel and Sophie. "Thank you," he uttered, with a quiet intensity, the phrase laden with the profound gravity of 10 years unspoken. Rachel nodded fully, grasping that at times the most profound gift lies in recognizing someone for who they truly are, rather than the shadow of their former self. As the helicopter ascended into the sky, a small gathering of park visitors stood frozen, their expressions a mix of awe and disbelief. The woman who had previously cast her doubts upon Rachel now approached with a palpable hesitation, her steps laden with uncertainty. With a heavy heart she confessed, "I regret the words I spoke. I pondered, I presumed." "We all harbor our assumptions," Rachel responded with a graceful demeanor. "What truly holds significance is the ability to gaze beyond their confines." The tale of the extraordinary Richard Park extraction rippled through the town with breathtaking swiftness. Reporters reached out to Rachel for interviews, yet she resolutely turned them all down. "This tale does not belong to me," she articulated with a weighty pause. "By mere chance, I found myself in the right place at the right time, ready to offer companionship to someone in need." In a matter of days, the military Richard orchestrated an intimate ceremony at Quantico, shrouded in solemnity and reverence. At long last, the families of the fallen Task Force Echo members received the full and poignant narrative of their loved one's extraordinary Richard brave Richard. Reed, despite the shadows of his past still haunting him, had embarked on a profound odyssey toward rediscovering his true self. A week later, Rachel found herself holding a formal letter from the Marine Corps, a heartfelt acknowledgement of her embodiment of the values of compassion and humanity principles that stand as the pinnacle of our nation's ideals. Within the confines of the envelope lay a personal note from General Richard Dare. You rekindled the spirit of a shattered warrior, reminding him that he was still deserving of the simplest acts of human kindness. In this noble endeavor, you have illuminated the path to solace for 8 sorrowful families. Have you ever stood firm in your conviction while others turned their backs? Your tale holds significance as well. At their familiar rendezvous, an unexpected discovery, Richard awaited them shrouded in Mr. Richard and intrigue. A newly placed bench adorned with a delicate bronze plaque. Upon the kindness bench, a mother imparted the invaluable lesson of righteousness to her daughter, weaving a tapestry of moral wisdom in the gentle embrace of their shared moment. On that fateful day, not a single military Richard helicopter soared through the skies above. No captivating scenes transpired. Yet close to their picnic haven, a fresh American flag stood tall, dancing gracefully in the tender embrace of the spring breeze. As they carefully unveiled their lunch, a courier suddenly appeared bearing an envelope that seemed to pulse with significance. Within the confines of the envelope lay a handwritten letter, penned by none other than Colonel Reed himself. For a decade, I remained invisible to the world around me. By my own volition, I embraced the shadows of invisibility, convinced that I was worthy of nothing more. On a seemingly mundane Sunday, an unexpected gesture emerged, one that transcended mere sustenance and bestowed upon us the profound gift of dignity. It is the profound recognition that amidst all that has transpired, I still stand as a being of flesh and spirit. At times, redemption does not arise from monumental acts, but rather from the simple offering of an additional sandwich and a cherished seat at the table. You awakened the essence of my being, a flicker of memory, Richard, igniting amidst my resolve to erase it all. For that, no words can truly express my gratitude. The letter bore a signature that was unadorned yet profound, a grateful Marine. Within the confines of the package lay a delicate silver charm exquisitely crafted in the form of an oak leaf, a poignant reminder of the tree beneath which they had savored their meal together. As Sophie frolicked in the sun-drenched grass, Rachel observed with keen eyes the striking transformation in how the park was being embraced by its visitors. The bench appeared as a quiet beckoning, a still call to those who dared to sit and ponder. An elderly woman entrusted Herster Richard to a young man whose battle with addiction was painfully evident. A sharply dressed businessman, clad in an expensive suit, perched beside a woman meticulously arranging her scant belongings within a shopping cart. In the quiet spaces where walls had loomed, small moments of connection blossomed, defying the shadows of isolation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow, Rachel delicately fastened the charm to Sophie's bracelet, a moment steeped in significance. "What does it signify, dear mother?" the young girl inquired, her voice filled with curiosity. "It signifies," Rachel replied, "that there are moments when the most courageous souls no longer don uniforms, yet they remain worthy of our remembrance. Some heroes emerge without the need for grand introductions or elaborate celebrations, for it is often the most unassuming gestures, like an empty seat at a table, that possess the power to rally an entire army and mend the deep-seated wounds that have long lain beneath the surface. Have you ever beheld the poignant sight of a once celebrated hero, now cast aside and shrouded in the shadows of oblivion? Unleash your narrative, for within your words lies the brilliance that could illuminate another's path. Join us on a journey of extraordinary Richard tales where the spirit of gratitude always finds its way home, no matter the hour.